Fix it.
Good morning and welcome to the April 26th session. Before we start, we open with a prayer. And today we have Jim Witt from Monterey Christian Church. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. All right. Heavenly Father, as we stop at this time in the morning on a beautiful Wednesday morning, thanking these commissioners for their service to this county and for being so wonderful that they think about you before they ever start their business. And that's a very thoughtful thing for their hearts and for our hearts as we want to do our business in this county and want to do it correctly according to your will. We ask for your protection and your guidance. We thank you for just being our God and watching out for us. Just now, as we start the meeting, we ask your blessing upon this place, protection around this place, that you put heads around here that no harm will come to these people as they do the business. And as all this happens, in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord, we thank you so much. We pray it to his name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Commissioner Palmer, you want to do this?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda is the approval of the regular session minutes of April 24th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second. Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Painter.
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran.
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor.
Yes. And today we have a proclamation designating this at April 30th as National Therapy Animal Day. And we have Susan and Baxter here today. You want to come on up?
It's Karen.
Baxter. He likes you, Lyle.
It's Karen.
It is Karen. I'm
That's all
sorry.
right.
I don't know
My
why I
middle
said
name is
that.
Sue.
Well, I was halfway right,
Sit.
right?
Sit.
You gonna sit?
Yep.
Good doggy.
Isn't he pretty?
Yes.
Good doggy.
Thank you so much for this, by the way.
Oh.
We really appreciate it.
No. So the proclamation states National Therapy Animal Day, April 30th, 2023. And whereas there are thousands of pet partners, therapy animal teams serving in communities across the United States, and whereas Pet Partners has designated April 30th as National Therapy Animal Day, whereas Pet Partners therapy animal teams in the town of Cincinnati and surrounding counties play an essential role in improving human health and well-being through human-animal bond, and whereas Pet Partners therapy animal teams make millions of visits per year in settings such as hospital, nursing homes, schools, and hospice, and whereas Pet Partners therapy animal teams interact with a variety of people in our community, including veterans, seniors, patients, students facing literacy challenges, and those approaching end of life. And whereas those exceptional therapy animals who partner with their human companions bring comfort and healing to those in need. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that we, the Board of County Commissioners, do hereby declare April 30th, 2023 as National Therapy Animal Day in Clermont County and encourage our citizens to celebrate our therapy animals and their human handlers. Further, we publicly salute the service of therapy animal teams in our community and across the nation. And is signed by Commissioner David Painter, Commissioner Claire Corcoran, and myself, Bonnie
I
Batchelor.
appreciate that. Thank you so much.
And we appreciate you bringing Baxter.
I would like to mention, though, that we do a little bit more than just go to nursing homes and schools. We are a member of the crisis response team also, which means disasters, suicides, tornadoes. We are affiliated with FEMA to make sure that we are schooled, educated, and then we take another test. We also went to, and it's probably, you know who it is, in 2019, he was in the courtroom with a infamous defendant who sexually abused his daughters. And so Baxter was in the courtroom for her. So there are other things that we do. The Juvenile Detention Center, I set that up. It's the only one in the state for visits. So I wanted to just clarify that a little bit more. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Why don't we get a picture of
All right,
Baxter? He can
Baxter.
set up here. Oh,
Does he?
I have no clue. Over here.
Well, he gets 3.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I don't blame you, Pastor. I don't like it either. Thanks.
Oh, we're gonna go visit today. Okay, lots of visits. Thank you, thank you. Appreciate that so much. And I think it's Mike, right? He has my card, so if any of you are interested in therapy work, just check with Mike and he'll give you my email address. Thank you.
He's sweet.
Thank you so much.
See, Greg, we keep telling Tom we need a therapy animal in the office.
do.
I know, that was the biggest one.
He likes you. Do you hear him?
We're gonna have to talk to that dog.
Know you as well as we do.
No, he's
Looks
really,
like lunch.
he's really trying to tell him our water's not working.
Something about the fire hydrant.
Oh, that's it.
That's it.
Oh.
Miles in rare form.
Okay, we went really south. Okay, item D, we'll move on from that one. You're gonna do a presentation on broadband?
I am right now.
Yeah.
If you would so like.
I would so like.
Actually, I have a whole team on the screen that I'll introduce here in a second. But as you know, commissioners, we have studied broadband in this county. We've been talking about it for a couple months. We have our preliminary first final draft report to share with you today. It talks about the state of broadband in the county. A lot of assumptions were made prior to the study, and we kind of learned a lot of things about broadband in the county. It's not as good as we think it is. And I think they're going to show us that today here in the presentation. Interesting thing to know, we've been talking about for a long time, the FCC maps. And you're going to see a slide in here today that kind of flips that up on its end because the FCC thought we were all great with broadband and had a lot of service. And the truth of the matter is we don't. And so this potential project that you're going to be presented with today definitely can go a long way to getting broadband throughout the entire county. So we have Mike Stetson with Insight. So that was our primary consultant on this, and they used a group called Cobb Fenley, and they put this plan together. So they're going to go through the presentation, which you do have in front of you. So Mike, if you're there, take it away.
I am, Greg. Thanks. Can everybody hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you're good.
We're good.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. Hey, I don't know how we're going to follow that therapy dog. That's always going to be a tough one, right? But we love those. So, Greg, we appreciate the time. Commissioners, we appreciate your time today and the opportunity to provide you this broadband study that the Insight Cobb Finley team has provided for you. So with that, I'm going to introduce Tim Ouellette. Tim is our project manager on this particular broadband study. And Tim's actually going to introduce the team for us real quick, and then we'll jump right into the presentation. Tim? You're on mute. There you go, bud.
Thanks, Mike. So on the phone, we have Mike Mitchell, who also works closely with Mike Stetson and is our primary sales representative coordination. We have Jared from Cobb Fenley, who will be doing the actual presentation himself. And then Isabella, who also works with Jared at Cobb Fenley. So Jared will be doing the presentation. And then Mike Mitchell, as our primary sales coordinator, has done a lot of community wireless broadband projects. So he may be interjecting here and there as well. So it'll primarily be me, Jared, and Mike presenting.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Jared,
Thanks.
all yours, my friend.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Let me get this up on the screen. Oh, I'm disabled from participating in screen sharing right now. Is there any way for the owner of the calls can allow me to?
Hang on, Jared. We're working on it.
All right, should be good now.
Give it a try.
All right, so good here. This.
There we go. There we go.
Yes.
All right. There you go, Jared. Yep, we can see it now. Commissioners, can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for commissioners for inviting us to review the results of our study and the next steps. My name is Jared Brandstetter. I'm a professional engineer, the broadband group lead and the principal at Cobb Finley. And as I mentioned in the intro, Cobb Finley has been working with Insight in this joint effort to review the state of broadband within the county. So just to recap on the goals of the study, this was based on the input we had from county staff in our initial kickoff meeting. We really wanted to focus on the state of broadband, meaning the physical infrastructure, the providers that are there, what current infrastructure could be leveraged that's already existing. We wanted to focus on the unserved and underserved population, the rural areas, and also focus on economic development and how we can expand enterprise. So, fiber, high level fiber and internet capacity to businesses to allow for that expansion with the population growth and development eastward. And then also take a look at the necessary security needs for the county usage as part of the county side of the network for emergency services, public services, et cetera. So our scope of work based on that understanding is we're going to jump into public engagement and stakeholder engagement. And so essentially we pushed out a survey and an accompanying speed test to get the feedback from as many residents and businesses as we possibly could. We assessed and looked at all the existing broadband options. We used a mix of publicly available data, not to mention stakeholder data when we were able to receive their maps, facilities. We looked at the existing county facilities, that could be a part of this network or connected to this network. We looked at strategic partners and the different requirements that we would have for them, developing a broadband connectivity plan, and we created a very high level preliminary engineering plan to look at what the scope and the footprint of a network that could serve the county would look like. So based on our survey, we had, I think, over 1,000 responses and a pretty well dispersed sampling across the county. And this should probably be no surprise. Spectrum had 48% of responses. We're currently using Spectrum. Alta Fiber previously, Cincinnati Bell at 41%, and Frontiers down there at 4%. And then we have some various other providers that were also being used. What we like to look at in a survey is a couple of factors that tell us, what the impression is of the current broadband services. Not just do you have them, but what are you able to do what you need with what you have, or do you have enough options? So these are the factors we really look into, and the key takeaway here is that when we look at very poor, neutral, good, and excellent, most of the people that respond to this have internet connection, right? It was a internet-based test. And so we're really looking at the quality, and what we can see from this, and it's a little clearer on the next slide, is that the pricing overall was not very competitive. They weren't happy with the pricing, and then the options, the first one over to the left, are somewhat neutral. So those kind of correlate, and we see that a little bit further on the next slide. So in this slide, we essentially took the values from the previous one and assigned a weighted system. So essentially, if someone said it was, one of these factors was very poor, we gave it a -2, and then all the way up to excellent, we gave it a +2. So you can kind of see, stronger feelings are more evident here. So we can see internet pricing had a -557, which kind of speaks to the data that seems to be one of the biggest issues. And then, of course, neutral isn't good enough. We want to be good or excellent. So the 7 for internet provider options is somewhat low as well, and those do correlate This makes sense if you have limited providers. It means less competition for pricing tiers of service. You know, you may just have the same 2 providers that offer the exact same service at the exact same price, and you're not really giving, you know, residents, businesses options that fit their budget or their needs. So this can also have a great impact on overall adoption.
Does this make sense? If you can go back real quickly, Jared, does this make sense to everyone in the commissioner's room?
They're all nodding their head.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So when we were looking at the existing broadband, who's the players who's out there? I think again, this is clear from that first survey, but geographically, we know the northern portion of the county was primarily serviced by Cincinnati Bell and now Alta Fiber. These are called ILEC boundaries, or the incumbent local exchange carriers. So they've been here for a while, really since we started expanding out internet access, you know, to the home. And you know, these companies started when we were pushing out copper and legacy networks, and so they had drawn up boundaries to say, this is where I'm going to serve, this is where you're going to serve, and this is our territory. We're going to handle everything in here. And then you had competitive local exchange carriers, which are the competitors that don't have a set boundary, and they're looking to enter the market and, you know, make a difference and provide different services and try to gain as many customers as possible, right? And so those local exchange carriers will look for any gaps for their position to compete. And because they're looking at return on investment, of course, so they're going to see, well, hey, you know, this is still you know, an underserved area and only has copper, and it's a good opportunity for us to get into this market. And so that's where we've kind of seen how the play between the incumbents and the competitors throughout a while now. And just of note, ILECs, the incumbents often have a challenge nowadays to migrate from legacy networks. So they have a bunch of, you know, network in here from back in the day, but it's hard to modernize that because it's costly, and they may have to also be looking at, you know, building new areas, and they may build that with fiber, but they got all this copper still in here that, you know, they're balancing priorities of when should I upgrade this compared to doing a new build. So we spoke about a competitor. Spectrum is one of many, but they're obviously very prevalent in Clermont. And so there you can see here they're denser in the urban suburban areas, but they've expanded into rural areas as they're able to, based on that return on investment model and where it makes sense, financial sense for them. Many of these competitors like Spectrum have built out either cable or hybrid fiber cable networks, which have been good. They're definitely an upgrade from the legacy kind of copper networks, but and they can meet some of the standards of today. They are making technological improvements with these type of networks, but they're still not able to provide the same capacity the end users as a fully fiber network or fiber to the home networks. Another item we looked at, again, we mentioned the county facilities. So we want to know, you know, what needs to be served. Of course, there's the residential side of it, but then there's, you know, county municipal facilities that are really important and really beneficial to connect to a network like this for interconnectivity. So there's the localized network, SCADA, meaning, you know, automation for public services, you know, smart lighting, metering, smart metering, automatic meter reading at the water meters and pump stations. So we looked at a lot of the public infrastructure, but then also anchor institutions, schools need to be connected, emergency services, EOC, stuff like that. So we tried to do a sweep and make sure we found out, you know, everything that could be connected to this network and probably should be. So this is where we looked at the FCC data, which Greg mentioned in the beginning. It has gotten better. When we initially even through the course of the study, when the initial maps we had didn't show as much need as they do now. So it's apparent that the data should be getting better. We have challenged the data, and not just either with addresses to say, hey, you missed this whole neighborhood, and so obviously we're not going to have data on it. And then once they added that neighborhood, sure enough, that neighborhood is not served. And so we've been seeing a trend where we're getting better data to show where the needs are, but it's a work in progress for sure. And so the breakdown here is you've got the red hexagons that represent any address within that hexagon that has less than 25 megabits per second download and 3 megabits per second upload. So at that speed, they're considering this pretty much like you're not even served. It's just not adequate at this time. And so those are all identified in the red. And then in the blue, we have the underserved, which is less than 100 megabits per second download and 20 megabits per second upload. And so this is you're in that gray space where you may be okay now, but you're quickly, this level of speed and quality of services is not going to be good enough very soon, if it's not already. Updated standard that they're trying to see is 100 symmetrical, meaning upload and download. So this is what we look at because it tells us also eligibility for grants, how the NTIA and other entities that are pushing out funding are visualizing this and saying, okay, this is how we're going to establish needs. So we wanted to look at that for Clermont. One thing to note here is that this is not density either. So, there may be just one address within that hexagon, but there may be 100 addresses within that hexagon. So what we've seen when we look at this data more fully in the report is that in the southern townships in the county, it's a lot more dense. There's a lot more need. That's where the majority of those addresses that we show as unserved or underserved are. So now we know where the needs are, and we've looked at who the different players are in the area. But what have we looked at from a stakeholder engagement perspective and strategic partnership? So this is just the stakeholders that we spoke to and have an idea of where they stand. But there's plenty more that I'm sure would be very interested in seeing what they could do with the county. So starting with Alta Fiber, they have a very aggressive plan to migrate and replace all their copper with fiber within fourth quarter this year, which it's very aggressive. It's something to definitely be looked at and to try to keep the county abreast of their plans and their progress, because if that happens, that'd be great, but that's a lot of work. But they are currently serving the county facilities, so we know that they are invested in the area, and that's kind of apparent from them being an incumbent provider. That's the requirement, really. And then we have Spectrum, which of course have grown pretty crazy. They're constantly a competitor. They're looking for growth and gaps. They've been looking at the underserved and unserved maps as well, and that's where they're planning out, where they want to go after, and what funding is available. So they've been already looking into this, and they definitely want the county's support in what they're trying to do as well. So they would also be a potential partner. And then finally, Hamilton Clermont Cooperative, which is open to providing infrastructure to the county and more in the enterprise or middle mile. So not necessarily being the service provider, but kind of providing that middle branch between main facilities, which is still very helpful for expanding out within the county with broadband. So when looking at considering the potential partners and the modeling of how this would be set up is really important to consider, because this is how the county shows what their ownership level, their level of role or responsibility, what they want it to be, and what they expect from the partner. So these models inform on those roles and responsibilities from various parts of ownership of the network to investment and quality of service expectations or service level agreement. And developing that right business model will clarify the intent of this plan and allow for each entity to put their best foot forward. So when we look at the primary business models, based on our understanding of the county's preferred role, the most fitting would be the passive infrastructure only, where the county is essentially being able to promote this and invest to as a means to an end to make sure broadband expansion happens where they need it to and with the quality of service they want it to, but would not take on any service or operations or maintenance aspects of the network. That would all be handled by another partner. And then the accessory business model, so these kind of go in hand with the primary business models, is well, what do we want to include in that? It could be the public policy, meaning the counties, municipalities within would, have to check their ordinance, make sure permitting is streamlined. What can they do without spending a dollar, but can do through public policy that will help facilitate, promote this expansion and this upgrade of broadband services. And then, of course, we want to throw in public services. The county wants to serve, continue to provide public services, emergency services. So that needs to be thrown in there. Commercial, we want to drive economic growth, provide that access to businesses so that they can move in and create jobs. And of course, residential, focused on digital equity. Everybody needs to have access to quality broadband to have the same opportunities and thrive in their community. And so kind of to wrap this up, the strategic partnership, we would like to propose, and one of our recommendations is to have the county develop an RFP that aligns with the county's needs, desired role, and expectations on quality. This is really important because it allows the county to position itself to have a seat at the table and really have a say in how broadband services are expanded and improved across the county. We've seen traditionally that local ISPs or providers have been the ones to make that decision, the determination of where, when, and how these services would be provided. But municipalities need to be involved in this planning, as it directly impacts the quality of life and for the residents, the economic development. And there has been collaboration in the past, but this has been through franchise and other agreements that we've kind of seen that handing over the keys or provisioning supplemental funds to providers without a true partnership hasn't always been the best option. While the providers know their business best, they're definitely the technical, they know how to build it, everything, but municipalities know their residents. They can be a powerful partner in promoting adoption and internet services. So it really needs to be a true partnership. So in doing an RFP, this will open up a pool of providers that are saying, hey, I'm ready to partner, and I see your value as the county and what you can bring into this, and let's make this work, achieving the goals of the county, serving areas that might have been otherwise skipped over, and ensuring those quality of service standards. The speeds are good, there's not a lot of interruption to service. People are happy with it, it's working for them. And so through this process, Clermont County will be able to better understand what each partner brings to the table, additional information about their network and plans, their stance on ownership and modeling they would propose. And honestly, one of the biggest things is who is best positioned with existing infrastructure to actualize the network and most cost effectively saving those taxpayer dollars. And that is a good segue into this next slide where we go over our engineering plan. And so this is very high level. This is a preliminary, but we needed to see kind of what's the scale of this thing. And so just as an initial disclaimer, because I know that number is on the screen, this is based on if nothing was there right now. So we're proposing fiber across the county, strategically, centering on the middle of the county and breaking out in each direction, trying to go to some of those demand points or those locations that we've identified in the study, but also being central to be able to connect to all the other ones and all the residents. And so, like I said, this is greenfield, meaning we're assuming nothing's here, but as we've seen on those other maps of, where the incumbent providers and competitors are, there's fiber, there's a lot of infrastructure in the ground that can be used. And through partnership, the cost of this will dramatically decrease because they may have 25-50% of this network in the ground already that has capacity to be utilized as part of a county-wide network. And so just a quick breakdown on how we came up with this. So we essentially started at the center of the county and broke out in a star topology, meaning we're going in every direction as far as we need to go to hit, the furthest demand points or furthest residents out there, hitting, towers and everything we can on the way. And then we start developing these things called loops or sub loops. So wherever the network kind of creates a circle or boxes in, and that creates resiliency and redundancy so that if you had a cut, the whole network doesn't go down. It's able to kind of redirect the path and keep people up and going. And so essentially here, this is slightly upsized. And by that, I mean the fiber allocation that we have in here, how many fiber strands are in this cable is a lot. It has a lot of capacity in it. It means it can expand and grow as needed. And in addition, we had 2 ducts, which means we have an additional conduit piece for maintenance and expansion and lease opportunities as well. So again, another good follow-on slide is the funding opportunities because that come up with the funds to be able to do something like this. So there is, of course, the partnership, which investment needs to be, looked at from both sides. There's a lot of investment with those partners that they can play a part in. But there's also a lot of grant opportunities. The Broadband office, Broadband Ohio, has been active. They have already been awarding grants, and they most recently are using $5 million to do a statewide stakeholder engagement. And so I believe our team is already in contact with them, and they're very much aware of this project and this study as they look for more projects to fund. Along with that, with the office, you've got the digital equity planning, which is going to focus on adoption. And so, because essentially it boils down to if you build all this infrastructure, but no one signs up, it's kind of useless. So digital equity is to make sure people know how to use it, the value of it, and make sure people are adopting and using it, to make their lives better. And then finally, BEAD is kind of that big chunk of money, $42.5 billion coming down to the states. Most states are getting about $2 billion. And that's going to be the funding that can fund a lot of not just the middle mile, what we were showing, but also those last connections to actual homes. So that money will be coming down. They haven't opened it up yet, but it'll be coming down later, probably next year. So finally, to kind of wrap up, our recommendations are to publish an RFP, start looking at partnerships so that we can evaluate it, find out what the county seat at the table looks like, and then work with local OSPs to promote existing coverage, digital literacy. So this is the adoption, the public policy, the force that the county really has a good hand on that the providers need help with, and then creating a priority on upgrading residential broadband infrastructure in Washington and Franklin townships where we saw a lot of need through the course of the study. Those primarily being, pilot projects or something down there would be very beneficial. And that concludes the presentation.
Jacob, thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Comments?
One question was just talking about the slide that we looked at that showed the service that was currently in there was Cincinnati Bell, and it showed Frontier North and kind of how the county was put together. That seems to be one of the things that you run into in Clermont County. There is service, and most of those services were run in when many of these subdivisions were developed. And so what they have, down one side of the street is a large cable type copper network put in. And what happens is you run fiber to the outside, and there's a splice made with that, but the upgrade is never done, within the actual service lines of the community, which kills the speed. And many of those areas are, way below what the requirements are, usually 40, 43, 39, 37. Did you run into that when you looked at what the existing was there? Like for the old Cincinnati Bell installation that looks like it covers most of the county.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as in detailed in the report is kind of the speed test results, and we kind of correlated that to the technologies, right? And that it being an ILEC, and I mentioned, there's a lot of legacy network. It's, they make slow improvements because they know it's not good enough. But, if you have this brand new shiny neighborhood that you can go build out with fiber and, get a return on investment immediately compared to going back to that old neighborhood that, maybe it's not you don't think the residents are going to want to pay for a higher tier. It's costly to move that to fiber. They're a lot of times going to go for the shiny new neighborhood instead of going back and upgrading the old neighborhood, essentially.
So the question comes down is how are you going to overcome those two competing issues there? What do you see? One is the investment and what the existing is, and let's just talk about it. What needs to happen there is it needs to be ripped out or left in place and abandoned, and then new fiber installed. But yet, one of the highest issues that came to light was the fact that the cost is not effective. There are many people within Clermont County that have seen $150 and $200 worth of, internet service a month come out, and that has become very, very expensive. How do we work those two things together?
Yeah, I mean, and it could be multiple partners. I mean, some, it's easy for the incumbents to go for the new shiny neighborhood, not, do their conversions where maybe, if the costing was right and the adoption, if they had the confidence that in that old neighborhood that everyone would be willing to, pay for the fiber services. Because I know exactly what you're talking about, because I've had two options in my home where I had, AT&T copper for like $70 for like the slowest speeds. And then I had, Xfinity in my case for like $80, like maybe $10, $20 more, but it was, 10 times the speed. And so, I think it's hard for the incumbents to say, well, a competitor is already there. Even if I upgrade, I don't have a guarantee that resident will take my service now. So they have to do something even further. I think it really comes down to multiple partners. I think there should probably be a focus on new fiber builds, but then a lot of funding and federal grants should go towards, improving or upgrading the legacy network, because not to mention just right-of-way congestion. Like, you don't want to just leave all that stuff in the ground and, not utilize it. There's good duct down there. There's parts of that infrastructure that are still usable, as long as they can convince the providers and supplement providers to be able to make that replacement. And I've seen it a lot with like USDA Reconnect and USDA rural programs. That's a huge focus, is copper replacement, and it's been eligible for a lot of funding. So I think that's what the focus needs to be on, is, they need to have a strict focus on copper replacement for those ILECs, and, maybe new providers come in and provide fiber to that shiny neighborhood instead of trying to split the cost.
In addition to that, I think if you start looking at the ability of the communities to build out some of these open middle mile backbone networks, and then actually offer that out to different providers. Really, the goal is to help promote more of the competitiveness, but also make it a lower cost of entry for some of these providers to be able to deliver a higher speed service at a lower cost. So that's another really viable solution that a lot of communities are looking at these days.
Definitely, yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, Mike and team, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll be talking relatively soon.
All right, commissioners, Greg, thanks for your time, everybody. As always, Greg, if you have any follow-ups, anybody has any follow-ups, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks again. Have a great afternoon, folks. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
So board, you have the final draft presentation. It's 100 and some pages. It's excellent reading. I highly recommend you read all 100 pages. So my assumption is that you'll take this under advisement. We'll pick this up at a later date as we kind of break it down a little bit more.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Moving on then to item E is public participation. Seeing no one. We're going to move item J up now. That's county staff elected official discussion.
So I'd like to start with Mr. Jason Fountain. He has some information on a settlement we received from the Monsanto Corporation that is several years old, but I think they finally got around to writing the check this week.
They were kind enough to write us a check. So our office doesn't have much information about this, but it all started with a check that we received, the county received, made out to the county late last week. This is from the check is in the amount of about $27,000, $27,414. It's the county's share of a nationwide class action settlement with Monsanto. This is a 2016 case out of California, similar to the opiate case that involved a lot of different municipal actors all suing these various companies. This 2016 case involved various municipalities throughout California. Started with that suing Monsanto, alleging that Monsanto was to blame for the addition of various PCBs in waterways throughout California, and they decided to petition to make it a nationwide class, and they did. And if you don't know, I know that PCB stands for polychlorinated biphenyl. I had to look up how to say that, but and this is something that happened back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. So they're saying between 1930 and 1970 something, there were all these PCBs in various watersheds and waterways throughout the country. Clermont County, I knew they'd look at you. Clermont County was named as a member of the class. We're by virtue of our classified waterway and the way our watershed works, we are a member of the class. And this was an opt-out class. So basically they say, you get to be a member of the class and we're going to include you so you can't sue Monsanto unless you opt out. And apparently we never opted out, which is fine. We're not going to sue Monsanto anytime soon. So that case was recently resolved, apparently, back in November of last year. We are a member, determined to be a member of the monitoring fund. There's various levels to this $550 million settlement. Members of the monitoring fund, such as Clermont County, were issued checks based on size of the watershed and such, and our check was determined to be $27,000. The settlement agreement only indicates one limitation on the use of the funds. Let me read that to you so you know. There it is. The funds are intended to pay for PCB sampling and or other mitigation efforts in the settlement class members' sole discretion. So we can decide what we want to do with it as part of compliance with applicable law. That's about it. There won't be any further action on the case. There's nothing that the board necessarily needs to do. We don't need to sign anything. We don't need to send back anything. They've already sent us the check, which has been given to the auditor to hold safe because I don't trust it in our office. And we'll wait the board's further determination as to what to do with it.
And that's really a question for the board is would you like these funds directed? Sounds like you could put it in your general fund. You could put it in the water resources fund. So you have options to place it. So if you would like us to do that, let us know. If you want to take it under advisement, then please let us know where we should direct the auditor to deposit it.
Lyle's back there already writing down where he wants it to go.
He wrote down buy big pipe.
Jason had called me earlier last week, I think, about it, and I was unaware of the whole class action suit. Jason mentioned that it included language about a MS4, which is the municipal separate storm sewer systems, the phase 2 stormwater program with stormwater conservation. So
He might have a say in it as
might
well.
have had more information on it, and it may be more appropriate to go to
John
take
McMahon.
any money that you're willing to give, but it may be more geared for stormwater,
Okay.
the MS4.
So we'll take it under
Yeah.
advisement at this point.
Yeah, MS4 is part of that stormwater management. Isn't that something that townships participate in and they have to pay dues to be part of that stormwater district?
Yeah.
You know, and just a consideration that, you know, since that money is for PCB monitoring and stormwater runoff which would be where this contamination came from, you know, board just to take a look at, you know, what would this 27,414 do if it was placed into the payment of dues for the townships to try to, you know, level that out a little bit. I know they are who contribute to all that money, so why not put it into there and maybe for next year or whatever it is, lower their cost of,
Rates.
lower their cost of distribution.
I'll take that.
Participation.
I did see some local municipalities were included in, so I would bet if we dug further, it may be that there are townships included that they don't even know about as well. They may be getting separate funds.
I'm sure it wouldn't hurt the townships, you know, feelings at all if they got a $27,000 credit for next
They're
year's
not going to
dues.
turn it down.
Everybody's up current.
But if that's where it
Yeah.
should go, then that's what we need to look at.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else under county staff and the
We
elected?
have Mr. Chris Turner, Assistant Facilities Director. We have more change order requests for the ORC 153.36 committee, courthouse construction. Mr. Turner has 7 for your consideration, and we're going to do those one at a time. And then we will take this is just a committee vote on these issues. So we will do those one at a time. And then Mr. Turner will still move on to the other committee members after the board does their votes. So remember, again, these are individual commissioner votes. This is not a board vote. So when Gail calls a roll for each one, she will poll you individually.
We don't need motion, we're just voting.
You're just voting. That's correct. So
All right.
Chris, have at it.
As Mr. Bickford had stated, this is a change order for the expansion, change order number 11. You have your supporting documents and your approval, disapproval page on there. We will go over these as, again, Mr. Bickford stated, one at a time. For our first change order is COR number 062R2 is electrical revisions. This is the original design, had the electric located per standard office in the commercial buildings. This design was accommodate a typical commercial office furniture layout. This request is of Judge Shriver, initiated a request. This request was based on Judge Shriver's current design of the office furniture, which requires repositioning of the electrical outlets. The cost increase to the change order would be $98,894.26 to the project. The architect has verified the cost. All supporting document is included in the packet. So what had happened, Judge Shriver had a layout for furniture from the supplier, and when that had put into the bids, the electric got installed. The layout had come afterwards. We did talk to Judge Shriver. There's a possibility of having this number reduced depending on where that furniture lays. We can run some plug strips. He's okay with it. So this number may very well shrink at the end, but that's the initial cost that this change order would be.
So the vote today is on that.
So this is just for that. Correct. Yeah.
Are we ready to vote?
And this is, I'm sorry, Gail. This is just to accommodate the new layout of the furniture?
Correct. This would be the furniture layout for the offices, cubicles, any of that kind of stuff. So basically what it was, the original layout of the design of the building had maybe electric on a separate wall. When the actual layout of the furniture became, the furniture was located on a different wall, which means that location would have to move around. Again, this number might drop due to the location of the furniture and if we can get some plug strips along the wall and back behind the office area.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Ms. Batchelor,
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran.
No.
Our second item for COR number 063R1 is the shear walls. The original design of the shear walls called for a 14-foot tall 2x4 non-load bearing wall. This is a request. The owner initiated a request seeing the bowing of the shear walls. The solution to the bowing is to add metal studs to each side of the wall, provided a straight vertical surface. The cost increase to this change order is $7,631.47 to the project. The architect has verified the cost. All supporting documentation is provided in the packet. The shear walls, as stated in there, it's a non-load bearing wall, but the shear walls are a structural wall inside to keep your wall straight, keep stuff from falling down basically on the inside. The issue with this wall, if it was separated by multiple different offices or different partitioning walls, we could get away with just padding some of the drywall behind. However, this runs along the main corridor in the middle of the courthouse on the back side of the courtrooms, and roughly that wall's somewhere around 100 to 120 feet long. So if you were to look down it without correcting it, it is going to be very wavy and very not aesthetically pleasing.
And in the original design, this probably should have been in there.
So the original design showed for the 14-foot 2x4 walls. However, the contractor had seen the wall on the other side was a same wall. We had the same issue, so they went ahead and built 2x6 walls in that to stop this from happening on the other side.
Right.
Okay, ready to vote?
Yes.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Ms. Batchelor,
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran.
No.
So for our next item, we have COR number 064R1. This is for door hardware, connector, and the holding cells. The original design called for extensive security door hardware. The request is by the owner. It is felt that the extensive security door hardware was not necessarily. This resulted in a deduct changed order previously. However, door stops needed to be added, and there was a price increase of the existing door hardware. Cost increase is $1,937.21 to the project. The architect has verified the cost, and supporting documentation is in the package. So this change order, originally there was talks of having door hardware for the connector and the holding cells within juvenile. Some of that was wiring to be able to remotely, access the doors and unlock the doors. After researching it, is actually a fire code. You cannot do that. It has to be in the building. That was from a different side. So we actually took out the hardware that they were proposing to do, which was a change order for an increased amount. However, changing that hardware out, now we have to add different hardware to the door for door stops and taking out the automatic closers.
We're ready.
But who put this originally that on there?
So the original design called for just a standard lock set on the door hardware. It was a request by juvenile court to have remote access and be able to unlock those remotely. Once we figured out that it was a fire code, that had since gone away. And then now with the new design of it, with having the manual locks back, we had to add some closures and some other stuff to it. That also will, the secure connector doors, have weather stripping and some thresholds and stuff that were not included, and that's what this main is.
All right. This is R1, right? And you're making sure, okay, got it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Ms. Batchelor,
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran.
Yes.
So our next change order request is number 065R1. This is courtroom casework. The original design of the courtroom benches mirrored municipal court as directed. A request was made to redesign the benches. The committee denied this request. A request was initiated by Judge Shriver. A second request to redesign the benches, which was approved by the committee. The costs associated with this redesign included the extension of time, design, and delay of the casework. This changes $194,133.80. The work to change the benches is $23,767.01 for labor, materials, and markups. The remaining balance is for general conditions, which is cost of having a superintendent on site due to delays in getting the casework, which is 4 to 5 months. Should the casework come in sooner, a credit will be provided. The cost increase for this change order is $194,133.80 to the project. The architect has verified the cost. All supporting documents is in the included packet. With this change order, obviously this has to pertain to the benches and some of the casework around. It was noted that Judge Shriver does have funds in his budget to be able to pay for this, if it does get denied. So he is willing to pay for that casework.
Don't we have a superintendent on site anyway during this that we're going to pay more?
We do, however, the substantial completion date, if this were to get extended, that they're basically saying they would not be there if this has not gotten extended, so we're going to have to pay for the general conditions.
And just to talk about that a second, when it comes to delay on a construction project, there's two ways to handle it. You can handle it this way, where you make an estimate as to what you think that delay will be, and you can approve that delay, or you can handle it in the actual increase to the delay that's actually experienced.
That's correct.
Which, in other words, you would wait until the end and see how many days it actually has. The risk of that is that when you do it in a fixed price like this up front, whatever it takes is what it cost, and you know what the cost is up front. If for some reason there would be some impact to that differently in his control that has to do with the casework, then you could incur more money than that if the delay was longer.
Correct.
You
We
know, so
discussed this when we first were talking about doing a whole redesign again.
Right.
And adding the benches and everything. And, okay, well, I know where I am.
And there's also, in this change order, have provided the casework comes in early, they finish early, they will give us that credit for the general conditions.
All right.
and that's in the actual written of the change.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
So this isn't anything we could do in-house to save money.
We already, and that's you're right, because that's what we talked about the last time was just redesign the benches ourselves, et cetera. But then the vote automatic, or should I say, majority voted to go ahead and proceed with it. So now we're there, right? Okay.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Ms. Batchelor,
Can't keep delaying it, I guess, yes.
Ms. Corcoran.
No.
So for our next change order request is number 067, which is gas line realignment. The original design indicated that the natural gas line was in one particular location when it was not. Request, Duke Energy initiated request to relocate the natural gas when it was discovered that it was not in an expected location. Cost increase of $25,853.65 to the project. The architect has verified the cost. All supporting documentation is included in the packet. So with this change order, the gas line was wrote up by the engineers and supposedly was sent over by Duke. Once it was dug and installed by the contractor, it was all obviously found out that that is not the correct location. So it had to be relocated to tie into the gas main.
So the engineer should be responsible for this.
It's cloudy right now because they're saying that Duke provided that information to them. Duke is saying that that's not exactly where we had it at. So there was a miscommunication between Duke and the engineers.
So before we vote on this, should we get a clarification as to what the reality is?
This gas realignment, we can find the clarity of whose fault it is. I do know that the gas realignment, there's also, just like I talked before with the credits to the electrical revisions, there's a good possibility that we have this one reduced also. This probably will not be the full price that we pay. The gas relocation is something with a function of the building that obviously has to be done for the natural gas. But we are finding out.
We're going to go back after.
Yeah.
But at this stage, in order to keep this project moving, we're kind of, this is just where we're at in the process. And we're working on several credits on several items.
And where are we at the cost of this project? If we do all this today.
So for, let's see, the original contract sum was $8,009,000. If all of this change order was to be approved, the new contract sum would be $8,869,515.12.
Still within our contingency.
Correct.
You ready?
Yeah.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Ms. Batchelor?
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran?
Yes.
So our next COR number 068R1 is electrical revisions. This is separate from the earlier electrical revisions for the furniture. This is original design had electrical services that would provide extra capacity to the building. The request is of Mark Spalding Construction, initiated the request as no electric was specified for the secured connector. The cost increase is $13,910.43 to the project. The architect has verified the cost. All supporting documentation is included in the packet. So the secure connector, when it was designed, there was enough space in the sub panels and panels inside the electrical room. However, with the amount of electricity that has added to that, those panels had gotten filled up, so there was no longer any electric verified or allocated for the secure connector. The architect had requested to pull electric off the existing building, which we do not want to do just because with fire services, that's not something you want to pull off the existing building. So a sub panel had to be put in, coming off of the main from the mechanical room, and put a sub panel in for the electric for the secure connector, which will include the lighting, some HVAC in there, and some modules for cameras.
Mr. Bickford again.
Well, this is an issue where the original design did not include electric in the connector. So the initial discussion from a code compliance was it did need electric. But then after they reviewed it and the function of it was established, they realized that electric was needed for this particular connector because of the way what it's going to serve. So this was one of those, because it was an alternate and was added, this design issue of it was not taken into consideration. So this is one of those issues where it's not really anybody's fault. It's just a function of having that connector that has to be serviced, unfortunately. This is one I can't blame the engineer, the architect, or really the contractor, unfortunately. Love to, but can't.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Ms. Batchelor?
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran?
Yes.
For our final change order for change order number 11, COR number 069 is a restroom sink in room 1072B. The original design included a sink adjacent to the toilet area to serve the bathroom. This request is of Judge Shriver, and to add a sink immediately adjacent to the water closet. So the original design in this bathroom area, you had a sink off to one side and you had basically a water closet or a toilet area on the other side divided with a door, providing that sink would be your main lavatory for that area. Judge Shriver is requesting to have a lavatory added in the bathroom area instead of having to go across the room, which is kind of a kitchenette area now, to keep his area, clean and that kind of stuff. And that this cost increase is $5,796.09 to the project. The architect has verified the cost, and all supporting documents are in the packet.
And to make that a little different is that it's a combined office area. It has like a, what would you call it, a kitchenette area in it.
So I
It
believe
did not have a sink in the bathroom itself.
correct. So
you would
it was a multi-function area, basically a area with a sink. It had a big enough area for like a dressing type area for him to get prepared for court. And then on the right-hand side, you had a toilet with a door separating that area. And it showed a sink in there. Does not show a sink in with the restroom. It showed a sink in the common area.
That's an expensive sink.
Yeah, but that's his private area, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm ready. Anybody else?
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Ms. Batchelor?
I'm going to say no because I think we can put a sink in a whole lot cheaper than $6,000.
We're going to Home Depot and getting a sink.
That's right.
Ms. Corcoran?
No.
And do keep in mind that the board is number 2, 3, and 4 of the committee that we have met with. We are still waiting on a few of the other committee members to find out if this actual change order has been approved or denied. The total cost for the CORs for this project, the increase, if this change order number 11 is approved, is $348,156.91 to the project. Again, the architect has verified all the costs, and the supporting documents are in your packet. The previous approved change orders was $512,118.21, which brought the total project to $8,521,358.21. The proposed change number 11 to MSC would be $348,156.91 for a new contract sum of $8,869,515.12. Thank you.
So based on the other committee votes, the change order will be adjusted based on what is approved or denied, brought back to a subsequent session.
Correct. And we will have to get with the architect to redraw that up and get that back on the board as well.
Thank you.
That it?
That's all I have.
We move on.
We can move on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Mr. Painter, I'll take yours when you're ready.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. These are slippery. You got to get a
Sorry, I
hold of
wrote
these.
on mine. Apologize.
Yeah.
Ready to move on?
We are.
Consent agenda?
Board, I do have 2 changes that need to be made to the consent agenda, 2 items that have come up last minute. On your consent agenda, you have item number 1 is a set of master services agreements, and there are 4 listed. The 4th one is for ER Plumbing Company. We did discover some last-second errors in consultation with prosecutor's office, so we would like to pull just that one from this particular item. ER Plumbing Company, yes. And then the second change is under your personnel actions, just a note of clarification. Destiny Parks is listed under Community and Economic Development. She should be listed under the Department of Public Safety Services. She is taking a position with DPSS.
Okay.
So that's just more of a point of clarification, and Jess is glad to have her.
So on ER Plumbing, do you want that removed from the consent agenda to be removed from the consent agenda to be considered in the non-consent agenda?
No, to be
You're gonna
considered
bring it
later,
back.
just completely removed at this time.
Okay.
We will bring it back
So
later.
So you want to table that?
Table that particular item.
Until a time not
Yes.
specified?
Yes, but
Okay.
the other 3 would like to move forward with on the
Okay.
master services agreements.
So then we would move that and then vote to, okay. All right.
Okay. Do I have a motion with those changes to the consent agenda?
So move.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Roll call, Gail. And
Commissioner
you'll make
Painter?
the notation of those changes.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
Certainly will. Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes, thank you. Moving on to item G, non-consent agenda. First is the recommendation that the Board of County Commissioners adopt resolution number 044-23, resolving to approve payments to vendors in the total amount of $5,678,256.27 as set forth in the BCC approval invoice report for checks dated April 26, 2023. BCC directed prepaid invoices report or the procurement card transaction report as presented by the county auditor on April 24th, 2023, and further authorizing county auditor to issue warrants for same pursuant to section 319.16 of the Ohio Revised Code. Do I have a motion to approve?
Make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes. Morning, Jim.
Morning.
Good morning.
You have to wake up now.
Yes, well, I'm not here to ask for anything.
You sure you wouldn't like
You
to
learned
hear
your lesson.
No, thank you. I'm Jim Maloney, the administrator for the Clermont County Sheriff's Office. And item number 4 is a recommendation to authorize Bonnie J. Batchelor, President of the Board of County Commissioners, to execute the subgrant award agreement for subgrant number 2022-EX-OOS-1123 from the Ohio Department of Public Safety, Office of Criminal Justice Services for funding through the Extradition Transport Reimbursement Fund 2020 grant program funded through the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Bureau of Justice Assistance for the project entitled Clermont County Sheriff's Office Extradition in the amount of $800 with no required cash match or pre-award conditions for the period of 7/1/2022 through 6/1/2023 on behalf of the County Sheriff of the County of Clermont, Ohio, as the designated agency for the administration and implementation and in compliance with the terms and conditions. This is just a reimbursement we applied for because we had a tier 1 extradition. We had to go pick someone up in Tennessee, and we were able to. It qualifies as reimbursement. So we applied for it.
Thank you, Jim. Board, we've had the reading of item number 4. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes. Number 5.
Recommendation to authorize Bonnie J. Batchelor, President of the Board of County Commissioners, to act as the subgrantee and to acknowledge the electronic submittal of a grant application on or about April 14th, 2023 for funding through the State of Ohio Office of Criminal Justice Services relative to the Recovery Ohio 2023 grant program for the project entitled Clermont County Drug Unit to be implemented by the county sheriff in the amount of $297,757.01 with no local match required for the period of 5/1/2023 through 4/30/2024 and in compliance with the terms and conditions. This grant is a grant that we've had over just the last couple of years that the drug administrator applied for. It's been very helpful to the grant. Last year, we applied for about the same amount and ended up getting about $157,000. So we're not sure what we'll get, but we're optimistic we should get something close.
Thank you, Jim. Board, we've had the reading of item number 5. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Gail?
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Susan.
Morning, how are you all?
Yeah.
Item number 6 is the recommendation to appoint the following representatives to serve on the Clermont County Family Services Planning Committee to gather public input, review, and make program recommendations in developing a community plan to implement Ohio Works First and in compliance with Section 329.06 of the Ohio Revised Code and other programs established under Chapter 5107 Ohio Works First Program and Chapter 5108 Prevention, Retention, and Contingency Program of the Ohio Revised Code. The terms are from 7/1/2023 through 6/30/2025 for the following people: Beth McManus from the Early Learning Program Officer from Clermont Head Start, Dan Aki, Superintendent of Clermont County Board of Developmental Disabilities, and Gretchen Beheimer, who's the Program Director of Clermont County Family and Children First.
Thank you. Board, you've had the reading of item number 6. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran, Commissioner
Item number 7 is the recommendation to execute amendment number 2 to the subgrant agreement between the County of Clermont, Ohio, and Give Like a Mother at 299 Haskell Lane, Building C, Batavia, Ohio, 45103, previously ratified by the Board of County Commissioners on 8/10/2022 and subsequently amended on 11/28/2022 for the provision of temporary assistance of needy families, which is TANF, program services for eligible TANF clients of Give Like a Mother, with said amendment number 2 to revise the line item budget and attached itemized costs to reflect adjustments to the costs of 2023 spring and summer clothing packs due to changes made to the content of the packs, with no change to the total cost of the subgrant agreement of $300,000 effective for the period of 8/10/2022 through 6/30/2023, with all other terms and conditions of the original subgrant agreement and amendment to remain in full force and effect.
Thank you. Board, we've had the reading of item number 7. Do I have a motion to approve?
Make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
They're changing address, correct?
I wasn't aware they were changing the address.
I thought maybe they were moving over the whole unit over to the mall.
Oh,
read
okay.
that?
They may. I'll find out for you and let you know.
Okay, just for a correction on the address.
Sure. Do you think this address is incorrect?
It might be.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I'll clarify that before
Thank you.
today ends.
Thank you. Sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor.
Yes. Number 8.
Okay, item 8 is the recommendation to execute amendment number 1 to the subgrant agreement between the Board of Clermont County Commissioners, the Clermont County Department of Job and Family Services, and Clermont Senior Services Incorporated, previously ratified by the Board of County Commissioners on 12/14/2022 for enhanced adult protective services for eligible clients of the Clermont Senior Services Incorporated, with said amendment number 1 to expand the scope of services and budget, Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 2, to include additional services related to costs associated with establishing new or improving existing processes for responding to alleged scams and frauds as outlined in the revised Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 2 attached, to further enhance the efforts to prevent, recognize, and end abuse, neglect, and exploitation of older adults in Clermont County, Ohio, effective 10/1/2022 through 9/30/2023, with all other terms and conditions of the original subgrant agreement to remain in full force and effect.
Thank you, Susan. Board, we've had the reading of item number 8. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor.
Yes. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Good morning, Suki.
Item 9 is a recommendation to execute first amendments to agreements that we have with Batavia and Union Township relative to the resurfacing of the township roads. This is for project number RSO 123 relative to the 2023 road resurfacing that was ratified by the board on February 8th of this year, and which, in accordance with Section 5 of those agreements, the townships have requested the county to add additional scope. Batavia Township is adding a parking lot, and Union Township is adding 8 additional roads in a subdivision that they had already included some roads, which will also reflect new estimated cost of these. So this amendment is really just to expand their scope. We give that opportunity back to the townships based on the bid prices, because in some cases they may want to reduce scope if they can't handle it in their budget. Or in this case, this came up and timing was right.
Thank you. Board, we've had the reading of item number 9. Do I have a motion to approve?
Make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Gail?
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Gotta get out of here so you can go get that dog.
Buddy.
Or the check.
Or the
Or
check.
that's downstairs.
Or
Item
both.
10 is a recommendation to authorize Bonnie J. Batchelor, President of the Board of County Commissioners, to execute change order number 2 to the contract with Utter Construction Incorporated out of Bethel, Ohio. This was previously ratified by the board on April 29th, 2020, and subsequently amended on April 14th, 2021 for project number 6402-60173 for the Branch Hill Guinea Road Sewer Petition Project located in Miami Township, and represents a decrease in the amount of $10,625 for a total adjusted contract price to date of $172,686.86, as well as a non-compensable time extension of 433 calendar days for a revised contract completion date of August 18th, 2022 for additional installations and or modifications thereto as defined therein. And this is the final change order on the project, so we're working on the closeout documents with the contractor as well. We'll be glad to get this one done.
Yes.
Thank you, Lyle. Board, we've had the reading of item number 10. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lyle. You're up, Gail.
Yes. This is a recommendation to acknowledge the filing or refiling of the petition for annexation of 0.792 acres from Williamsburg Township to the village of Williamsburg, Clermont County, Ohio. This was filed in the office of the Board of County Commissioners this past Friday, April 21st, by Stephen Gettinger. He's an agent and attorney for the petitioner, James Fothery, who is at 371 North 3rd Street, Williamsburg, Ohio. It's further identified as parcel number 523509B001. This is in compliance with section 709.02 of the Ohio Revised Code. And pursuant to resolution number 2103, which was previously adopted by the Board of County Commissioners on 2/25/2003, the notification and the date, time, and place of the public hearing will be sent to the agent for the petitioners on Thursday, April 27th via email. And we designate Wednesday, June 28th, 2023 at 11 o'clock a.m. local time in the office of the Board of County Commissioners, 101 East Main Street, 3rd floor, Batavia, Ohio, 45103 as the date, time, and place for the public hearing.
Board, we've had the reading of item number 11. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, any additions?
Only addition is the modification to the executive session request, which includes dismissal, discipline of a public employee or more public employees.
That's already in here, what I'm getting ready to
Correct.
read, right?
Right,
So
but
we
that-
don't have to do a motion.
No, you're about to do the motion.
Okay, I'm about to read a novel. This
Don't
is,
we have to do the motion to add it?
he said no.
Let's
Because
go ahead
it's-
and do a motion to add.
Okay,
Yeah.
because it was corrected in this motion
Yes.
here, but we'll go ahead and do
Go
it.
ahead and do that.
I'll give the motion to add the change.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes. Now I can read the novel.
Now you can read the novel.
Okay, we're going into executive session pursuant to sections 121.22 G1, G4, and G8 of the Ohio Revised Code to consider the employment and compensation of a public employee, preparing for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. And 3, to consider confidential information related to the marketing plan, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance or negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance in connection with the relocation, location, expansion, improvement, or preservation of the business of such entity pursuant to section 1724.11B of the Ohio Revised Code. Do I have a motion to go into, or what?
Number one, you did not read the additional language. Sorry.
I thought that was in here. To consider the employment, dismissal, discipline, or compensation of a public employee or more public employees. Now can I have a motion to go into executive
So
session?
moved.
I will second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor.
Yes. We have returned from executive session. No decisions or actions was taken. I will read again why we went in. The executive session, it was pursuant to section 121.22 G1, G4, and G8 of the Ohio Revised Code to consider the employment, dismissal, discipline, or compensation of a public employee or more public employees, preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment, and to consider confidential information related to the marketing plans, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance or negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance in connections with the relocation, location, expansion, improvement, or preservation of the business of such entity pursuant to section 1724.11B of the Ohio Revised Code. Okay, at this time, we have add-ons.
Have add-ons, yes. I'd request to add on a personnel action for the Department of Job and Family Services.
Can I have a motion to add that on, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call, Gail?
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor.
Yes.
The personnel actions for the Department of Job and Family Services, there are two in relation to employee Brian Green. The first is for administrative leave, non-disciplinary with pay, effective April 25th. And the second is for a termination probationary removal, effective April 26, 2023.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Gail?
Commissioner Painter,
Before we take that roll
Yes,
call-
I'm sorry, I
Before
forgot.
we take that roll call, the two that are on he is already on leave. And this board is approving that action.
Correct. Do you want to take each
Yeah.
personnel
You wanna
action
do 'em
separate?
separately?
You probably should.
Yeah.
Thank you.
okay.
So the
So the first personnel action would be for the administrative leave, non-discipline with pay, effective April 25th.
So let's do this first, since we have a motion and a second that's on the floor. Let's remove that first.
remove it.
You, the second, Claire, will you remove yours as a second? And I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay.
So, okay, go ahead.
We have a motion.
Now we have a motion to do the administrative leave
Yes.
Yes.
effective April 25th, 2023. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call, Gail?
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor.
Yes.
And the second one?
Is a personnel action for the termination probationary removal, effective April 26, 2023.
So we need a motion for that.
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call, Gail?
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran.
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor.
Yes.
We do have one more add-on for the Department of DPSS, Public Safety Services.
Okay, we need a motion to add this on to the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Roll call, Gail?
Commissioner Corcoran.
Yes.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor.
Yes.
The personnel action is for employee Jason Noonan, who's an employee resource supervisor for administrative leave, non-discipline with pay, effective April 25th, 2023.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran.
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. All the add-ons, right?
I have nothing left.
Okay. We'll go on to item K, member comments.
None here.
None.
None. Moving on to L, adjournment.
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call. Hurry, Gail.
Commissioner Painter,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran.
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor.
Yes. Thank you.